Hi, something different today. My son, Chris, got the first of two packages. He got the first of the recent Transformer Kickstarter, Till All Are One
Collection.
collection. Thank you. Um, and I just thought that we could just do a guest show and he could just show off the books and just show off this collection because this collection, I think, got over $5 million in pledges.
This is the fastest comic book Kickstarter that ever got approved and made its end goal.
Right. Okay. So the size of the box is pretty sturdy. This is Daniel Warren Johnson art.
Who, if you've been reading the Skybound issues, was the artist for Transformers for the first 24 issues.
Right. And then you have the logo here. And I'm moving this slowly because this box weighs approximately 25 pounds. Chris was pointing this one out.
No, this is art from Warren Johnson in the style of the 80s.
Oh, style of the 80s. And this is the original Bumblebee
design,
right?
Yes, Bumblebee had a yellow face in the Marvel comics.
Right.
Because some of the designs are based off prototype toy designs and things. Some of them have different design that would seem odd today. For example, Megatron had like a black helmet. Things that you would see kind of weird now. But that was just how it was in the comic back then.
Okay. So once you get this box open, you flips open, and you have these 4 books. And we're going to go through each one of these books individually, just kind of go in what's in there, what's not in there. Although it seems like just about everything from Marvel, US and UK is in there, but just kind of just flipping through. Chris is going to drive, and I'm just going to sit here and make uninformed comments.
This is volume 1 of the Transformers Till All Are One collection. This is a Kickstarter exclusive. This specific collection will not be published in stores, as far as I know. Here, look on the bottom, you can see a prismatic foil, gilded edge. This is one of the Kickstarter bonuses. This game, they made so much money so fast, they kept having to come up with new Kickstarter pledges.
Well, not pledges, but
rewards.
Rewards. They kept having to do rewards and more rewards. If you got over this, I think it was over $5 million, right?
Yeah, I think it was like $5 million.
It was like 5.6 million. I think after 5 million, they were trying to do a run for 6, and I think it got to like 5.6 or 5.8. It was some ridiculous number.
It went up really fast. This one, you see Optimus here on the cover.
Okay.
You can see Ribbon. But here is the. This one is different from the other collections. You see, this one is actually signed by Bob Budiansky and Simon Ferman. Bob Budiansky was the writer for most of the US comics, and Simon Ferman was the writer for most of the UK comic. And I'll explain what that means. You see, Transformers was originally a 4-issue miniseries, but it became so popular, it went on for 80 issues.
Yeah, because it was really a toy line that didn't say make a comic.
Yeah, it was basically like Godzilla or ROM or the Micronauts. Sure, this is the first cover you see.
Bill Sienkiewicz art. You can see that a mile away. It was in the 80s. Throw them on a cover.
Yep, here's the beginning of the Transformers. This is the first issue, written by Bill Mantlo, because Bob Budiansky was editor. He wasn't allowed to write the book. He would later write the book, but you can see the first issue here. You see they had to introduce all these characters.
Oh my God, so many words.
They had to introduce all these characters. How are you going to know what toy to buy?
No, that's true, but it's just, oh my God, so many words. I don't know, just my personal aesthetic is like, oh, there's Michael Golden art, Michael Golden pencils. They actually have a page where they show the original art of this. But yeah, Michael Golden, who's another guy that you always put on a cover.
Frank Springer drew it. Later on, they got better with the writing and the less dialogue. This one is what I want to show you about. This one is specifically, if I can find it, issue 3. This is a very famous issue. The issue where Spider-Man crosses over. Because originally, these books were set in the Marvel Universe, like ROM was, Godzilla was. At some point, like around about very shortly end, they decided to make its own separate universe. But the Spider-Man crossover is still canon. So because of that, reprints of this story for trades are difficult. Because obviously Marvel wants some of the... You need to pay Marvel to have Spider-Man show up in your book.
Right.
So Skybound worked out a deal to have it. So in this collection, you see Spider-Man in the symbiote. There's actually an interesting story. He's wearing the black suit because Mattel did a toy in the red and blue suit.
Huh. Oh, that's right. So they didn't have the rights to do the red and blue suit.
And Hasbro said, you can't promote Mattel. So they said, okay, fine. We'll do... you can use the black suit. And you see Spider-Man hangs out here with D-list Autobot gears. And you can tell how early this is in because if this was today, Spider-Man would be teaming with Optimus or Bumblebee or like a real A-list character. And Gears is like pretty obscure. And you can see like why they didn't do too many crossovers because you can see like how are you going to see these guys as a threat if Spider-Man can fight the robots?
Right.
So we get issue 4, which was supposed to be the last issue of the series. And I'll show you a surprise at the end. Explain. This is actually drawn at the last minute. They changed the ending to have this twist ending where Shockwave, the Decepticon, shows up and just shoots everybody.
Yeah, because later on, and I saw it, they actually show you the original last page, and it says the end.
We defeated the Decepticons. Time to go home.
Yeah, and then they went ahead and said, "Forget, we're making too much money on this one, brother."
Yep. This is a pro story. They would do these in the UK annuals. This one has Megatron as a gladiator. He never really had an origin in the US comics. And this is interesting because the writers the fans who grew up reading this became writers for IDW. And when they wrote Transformers, they made Megatron a gladiator in his backstory, like in this comic, because they were fans of this. So Megatron was a gladiator in a corrupt Cybertron, the planet they're from. He starts his own group called Decepticons to overthrow, becomes like a terrorist, and Optimus has to stop him.
Right.
And those books became popular enough that Hasbro said, that's his backstory from now on. So this random UK story that was just thrown together for just for fun, is now like his definitive backstory. You can see here like Megatron leaves this guy to die, and the stuff about like how war and revolution, like how this Cybertron's corrupt. There's like a whole thing where like someone's like, we should help them out, and then this Autobot commander's like, no, why should we help them out? They're our enemies. This is one of the UK stuff. Like I said, one thing about Till Older 1 is that publishes every story in the US and UK books in chronological order. Unlike the retail US collection and the UK collections, the US books only have the US stories in order, and the UK ones have the UK ones in order.
Yeah, and Simon Ferman was the writer for the UK books, and then you told me later on when Bob Budiansky left, he told Marvel, you should just hire Simon Ferman to write the US books, and they did. And so you'll see Simon Ferman on and on and on. And that's why, if I may, that's why he's one of the, because Bob Budiansky was the main writer in the beginning after Bill Matlow's first few issues. And then Simon Ferman is also iconic as a writer. And I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. Ferman's actually the Transformers writer to a lot of people. He still writes Transformers to this day. But we can talk about that. So you can see the UK books have a slightly different art. You can see here, this is one of the UK books.
This reminds me of like when you look at like the original Marvel Man books, like the original ones that look, the coloring and this coloring style, this palette, reminds me of some of the Marvel Man, it was Miracle Man, but books that Alan Moore did.
I understand. Yeah, I get what you mean. The books back then, this one's really different from the other ones. This one has a more like creepy, like horror style, because the art writer had mostly done Doctor Who comics. So it's written like a Doctor Who comic, a lot of suspense, mystery. They really play up the Autobots and Decepticons as like aliens in this weird way that you really wouldn't see normally. You see all this shadow.
Right.
You can see you see these characters looking almost sinister in some of these shots. I think that's Jazz. The Autobots, you can see them here. And you can see them just blowing up characters. You can see the UK books are just very violent. You can just blow up characters because they're robots. So it's like, it's not really a big concern. Wow. This was not written by Ferman. This is the first one Ferman would write. The Enemy Within.
John Ridgway. I remember that name. Yeah, British artist. I remember him as well. I know that name.
You can see this one's really early on because Megatron actually mentions the time he fought Spider-Man. I said this was like a really early change. But you can see the UK has totally different coloring and art style. And the characters early on looked a lot more like their toys. Like, you can see this is Brawl.
Right.
You know, like, this is Brawn, and he doesn't have any, his arms look very strange because it's how the toy looks. There was more of a whole, we gotta make them look like how they did in the toys. But you can see here, the characters look, you can see the art and the shading are very different. They're trying more, and these were all stories that technically aren't not canon with the Marvels, the US stuff, but they mostly exist in the same canon. You just kind of squint your eyes. They were meant to they did like a lot of time travel later on, and flashbacks, and here's what we didn't see. You can see here. This is issue 5. If you've ever seen this cover, this is where it's from. This is the most iconic Transformers cover. The Transformers are all dead. This is actually parodied a lot in Transformers cover.
This is funny because this is a Honeymooners homage.
Oh yeah, this is a scene where Shockwave is watching all of Earth TV to study humanity. He's watching all of them because he's trying to understand him. This is when Bob Budiansky started writing. Right. You'll like Shockwave because Budiansky admitted in an interview that he basically came up with, what if Spock was a villain? So he basically just comes off like an evil Spock. And you see this shot here. less dialogue. He just says, indeed. He's just he has all the Autobots like rounded up in cages and hanging up, and he has Decepticons. Shockwave is a personal favorite of mine. Issue 8. This one's also important because you see these are the Dinobots. You've probably seen these are robots who turn into dinosaurs. You see in the Marvel comics, to explain their existence, it's explained that the Dinobots got their dinosaur forms from the Savage Land, which is a part in Marvel, if you don't know, is a part of the Arctic that dinosaurs live.
Yeah, if you're an X-Men fan, you know.
Yeah. So this is actually, I think, the last time they directly acknowledged this is supposed to be in the Marvel universe. So this issue also doesn't get reprinted a lot because...
This is Kyle Baker. I wonder if that's... Kyle Baker, Rick Parker. Oh, he's actually a pretty good artist, but he's known mostly for his letters.
That's Christopher Priest, right? Jim Owlsey?
Yes.
That's him. Jim Shooter was editor-in-chief. So in this issue, you see Ratchet going to the Savage Land, which means this issue doesn't get reprinted a lot because Marvel, obviously, they want that money.
Right, yeah, because Christopher Priest did become, was one of the editors on this book. And I noticed that even, I'm not sure the author is somebody, I mean, the cartoon is somebody that I'm not familiar with, but to me, this looks like somebody said, draw like Bill Sienkiewicz. Because I thought for a second, is that Sienkiewicz or is that Timu? And it's like, yeah, it's a Timu.
They just it's with the times. That's what they wanted. See here, the art and coloring are different when it goes to the UK books.
Yeah, it's funny when you look at the UK style, which I kind of like better than a lot of the US style.
This one's actually important. This is Circuit Breaker. She's a character owned by Marvel. And this one actually has a funny story. The contract with Hasbro said that any character made for the Transformer comic that first appeared in Transformers is owned by Hasbro. But Marvel, Jim Shooter really liked Circuit Breaker. So to get around Hasbro, when he wrote Secret Wars 2, he had a scene where Circuit Breaker showed up and had her appear in that first, so Marvel could keep the rights. He wrote her in to make her super important. There was a scene where this character called Beyonder is like, I want to get rid of free will, and then Circuit Breaker shows up and goes, I hate Transformers, and I hate giant robots, and Beyonder goes, free will is pretty cool, actually, it's funny. So he made her super important just so Hasbro would never use her. But ironically, Marvel would never do anything with Circuit Breaker after this book. They were going to do a whole spin-off series called Techno X or something.
That's one of Jim Shooter's great ideas.
In the 90s, but it never happened. So they have the Circuit Breaker rights. So because of this, Marvel can, in some collections, they can't actually reprint these issues because of this character.
That's crazy.
They have to black out these issues, or they have to do one of those prose summaries. They get attacked by some cyborg with a vendetta because they can't legally use this as a Marvel character. That's how Marvel gets their payday. Bumblebee has that yellow face I was telling you about. He doesn't actually have a yellow face in the cartoon, but this is how he looked in the comic. Autobot Killer. This is still the 80s. This one's drawn by
Herb Trimpe and Al Gordon. Okay. Good solid dudes.
Yeah. You can see this impressive coloring and shading. I really enjoy the way they draw certain characters here. You can see Optimus is just a head in this stuff. I said this was just a robot, so you can get away with stuff that would be kind of unthinkable for a modern Marvel comic.
There's Circuit Breaker in the UK.
Yeah, they actually wears less clothes in the UK than the US.
They were probably told to. Let me tell you something. Jim Shooter never had a problem having women with revealing. No publisher did, but Jim Shooter. I swear, I think that's why they had Moondragon and the Avengers so long.
This one,
there are certain characters you're like, why do you have Tiger? Why do you have somebody wearing a really skimpy bikini running around who really doesn't have any powers? And that was like a Jim Shooter thing. I know it was a Marvel, I know that was a superhero comics thing, but for me, it was especially Jim Shooter. Like the character, it wasn't like Ms. Marvel, who used to wear basically a one-piece thong, but she was powerful, but she could fight. You had some characters like, why are they here? I
still don't know why they kept Star Fox and Dr. Droid for so long.
I don't know. Let's keep going.
Yep.
We're pondering questions that will never have an answer.
Here's some more Dinobots. You can see, like I said, these books are very long. Swamp Thing, but not that Swamp Thing.
No, it's a hyphen.
It's a hyphen. That way they can get across. See, the characters look a little less like their toys, and they started drawing them more like how the cartoons kind of make them look.
Some of this art's pretty good, actually. Barry Kitson, good artist.
Yeah, they didn't half-ass these books because
I think I like the Marvel UK books. They look cooler.
Oh,
they look more science fiction-y.
Yeah, because they were allowed to basically do whatever as long as they didn't kill off people who were still in the US books. They could get away with this. So there's a little bit more trying and more experimental. Because back then there was no like lore. These characters weren't that. There's like no definitive. This is who's supposed to be doing that. This is Jeff Senior.
I've never heard of that name.
He would draw most of the UK books, and is considered like the UK artist. He actually draws some of the Kickstarter bonuses. So I'll be showing off later.
Because it's like the American. I'm not knocking it. It's just like, I mean, Don Perlin. I mean, he's an old hand, and Al Gordon. But I mean, this looks more comic booky, and the UK stuff looks kind of cool.
Well, I'm actually getting the US and UK books in separate, my separate collection, so I can loan you some of the UK books if you want to read them.
Yeah, maybe.
Because they're fun. And this is Megatron. This is the original form. It's a gun. It's just a gun. It's like a Walter A6. It's the gun the Nazis used, actually.
Oh, God.
This is back when toy gun, they were very unsubtle with how evil Megatron was supposed to be, I think. But back in the day, you could have Megatron as a gun. This is before toy gun laws happened. Now you have to, like, you can't make him look like a gun anymore.
Right.
That's why he looks like a tank. You see he's shooting people with his laser gun.
Oh, man.
He didn't shoot bullets, but he was a flat-out gun. This is Jetfire, I think. And you can see the Seekers. Other sort of these are characters that, like I said, Bob Budiansky mentioned that he had to basically come up every year drawing and introducing new characters every year because of how the toy line works. You can see this is the US. You have a lighter color, and more like comic characters, and more introducing all these characters. So you have an actual supervillain, a robot master. You see Megatron just threatens to shoot this guy in the face. Like I said, this is Bumblebee. This one's written by Len Kaminsky.
Okay.
He's a good writer.
Yeah. Very cool.
Nolan. Is that Graham Nolan, I think?
Graham Nolan.
Graham Nolan. Oh, the end's a little faded.
Yeah.
Oh, that definitely looks like his art.
Yeah, look, it's Graham Nolan.
Okay, so you see here. We're back in the UK, you can see. Like I said, these books are very, very, very long. Cool. Here's I believe this is Devastator, who's like one of the combiners, which are like Transformers that can turn into a giant Transformer.
Right.
Which means you gotta buy all 5 toys to get the big one.
Of course.
Remember, this is a toy commercial, so they have to constantly add in these characters. This one isn't a comic book. This one's like a special, like, mini-ish book. You see, it looks more like a toy commercial.
Right.
30 pence. Or is it 30 pounds?
No, pence.
Pence.
Pounds is $0, which is like $1.25, $1.30 of ours. 30 pence. Then that's like their version of a penny. It's like 1/100th of a pound.
These are more comic book exclusive characters. Some of these characters would become popular enough. This is Straxus. He would become popular enough. They would make toys out of, because these are they had so many characters. They just went and they still went. Let's add more, but they made more toys of them. So it all worked out in the end. Some of these characters still show up in modern Transformers lore. You see also they color corrected some of these issues because some of the traits it would mess up the colors. Ravage, I think they would make him look too dark.
Right.
In some things, he has like this blue shine, like that blue coloring back then.
Right.
Where characters would have to be black, but they would give them like a blue color.
Yes. That's for back then, just the color painting process.
Yep. See, like back in the day. I remember this one. This was like one they messed up a lot on the coloring for. Because sometimes they would forget to like color his teeth in and make him look like he's nothing in his mouth. But they have the blue here. You see, these are the pro story they would put in the UK annuals to read, and they would draw these little images.
These are nice. Looks pretty cool.
And like I said, they had to keep these books in canon with the US stuff, so they couldn't kill off certain characters. But they could use characters who didn't use it. There are certain characters who never appeared in the US books that would appear in the UK books. Like I said, look, you see he's just grabbing his skull here.
Right.
It's just all this senseless violence. And you see some of these characters that show up. But yeah, this is a lot of UK books. Most, like, you'd be shocked. The UK book, I think, went on for over 200 issues.
Yeah, I like that cover.
Going, gone.
Right. I like that cover.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the art here. But you can see they're also trying to keep them, like, on model. Oh, this is when they started introducing characters from the future. This one's a very famous story called Target 2006. This is the one here, Galvatron. If you know anything about Transformers, Galvatron is Megatron in the future, rebuilt in a new body by Unicron, who's basically like Galactus.
Right.
If he's like a god, he eats planets, but he's like a god. But in the U.S. books, they didn't have Megatron die to become Galvatron. So to get introduced, because Megatron was still alive in the U.S. books,
Right.
so to have Galvatron, they did time travel, and Galvatron travels to the past, and he sticks around for a while. They started doing a lot of time travel.
Okay.
And Simon Ferman really likes
So he's sort of like Kang, where he starts off in one villain and then he ends up as another villain in the future, right?
It's
and
like
he does time travel.
It's like if Kang like showed up and beat up Ramatut and said, "Hey, I'm in charge now, buddy."
Right.
And you see there's Megatron in his and you see Galvatron just kind of takes Megatron Galvatron to start having this fight with his troop. But yeah, they started introducing the characters from the movies through time travel. This is Ultra Magnus. He never appeared in the original US Marvel run. But he did appear in the UK stuff. And like so all these characters you would probably, if you know anything about Transformers or watch the 86 movie, you would recognize some of these characters. But this one's a very famous story in the UK. It's like considered a classic. With Galvatron trying to change history by killing the Autobots in the past. This is their way of getting past the we can't use these characters in the Marvel because we don't want to kill off Megatron. Look at all that emotion in that face. And like I said, these books are great for certain characters. This is Cybertron, the planet they're from.
All right.
Tron here. And like I said, the UK books really love introducing as many. This is Unicron. This is the character I was telling you about. He turns into a planet. And it was actually Simon Ferman who gave him this backstory in the comic. Where he basically said he's the god. He's like an evil god of Transformers. And he's like the ultimate evil in the universe. And pretty much every version of Unicron since then is just the Simon Ferman version. He blows up more explosions. This actually goes on for quite a while in the story, and you can see the dynamic art here. This is when I think Jeff Senior really became like known as the Transformers artist.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. It looks good though.
Yeah,
a lot of action. This
is a pretty famous pose here. Galvatron declaring victory. And Ferman also became a big fan of Galvatron. And every story with Galvatron, he basically comes off like unstoppable. See this? He just blows off Starscream's head. And we're still in the 80s. We haven't gotten that far. Okay, now we're back in the we're back in the US stuff. This is the adaptation of the 86 movie. You probably know that one film with the touch, that Stan Bush song. You
got the touch, right?
Well, and they put this as a 3-issue miniseries. This wasn't canon in the U.S. books because the movie never happened in the U.S. books. So the U.K. books did as like a sort of, this is what's going to happen in the future. They did a lot of time travel. So this is just an adaptation of the movie.
Right.
With the movie coloring. This is, you see here, they just kind of go through the basics of the movie. That's Unicron.
That's really nice art.
Oh, it looks fantastic. Like I said, everything basically about him that people care about was drawn by Simon Ferman.
You mean written by Simon Ferman?
Yeah, written by Simon Ferman, sorry.
They did a nice job cleaning all this up. These books are 40 years old.
And you can see they actually did a really good job showing Hot Rod has this magenta color. When it becomes Rodimus Prime, he has this bright red color, just so you can tell them apart. This is also one of the miniseries. Let me see. This is this is issue 21. We're only 20 issues in the US run. Let's see, Aerial Bots. No war toys you gotta buy for your kids.
There's Circuit Breaker's back.
Another issue you can't show in they gotta cut out. You gotta cut this page out. Oh, this one is
that must have been that 35th anniversary. You know that when that Marvel did their was it 30th anniversary, and they had everybody, and then everybody just did a cover of like one character. Like there's a couple of Barry Windsor Smith covers like that. That was pretty cool.
You can see all the Marvel characters.
Yeah, that was like the border for that month. It was 30-year anniversary of it was the 30-year anniversary of Marvel Comics. So all of them had this border, and then it had like one character.
And you can see also a specific time where you have the Fantastic Four, but you also have She-Hulk on the team. Iron Man's the Silver Centurion armor, Spider-Man's in the black suit, and you see the X-Men roster at the time with Rachel Summers and Rogue before she got
you remember, that X-Men story where Chris Claremont was talking about racism and he used all those slurs?
Yes.
They used all those slurs? Okay, that was that issue. I have that one. I think he drew Magic on the cover. Ileana, just a headshot. I have that. I picked it up at a con because if I see Barry Windsor Smith cover for $1, I'll buy it. I don't care what it is. It could be a box of Wheaties and I'll buy it.
I understand.
Oh man, they really tried.
They tried.
Jim Shooter. I know what Jim Shooter's doing. No, she's the one. That's the thing about guys that have a lot of great ideas. They start thinking that every idea they have is great, and not everybody's ideas are all great.
This also, you can see here, you have you have the run amok and runabout just drawing graffiti on the Washington Memorial and a bunch of other stuff.
Washington
Monument until they get shot down and killed. Hang on, let me see if I have it. There's also another issue. They gotta pay extra to reprint because again, Marvel owns this character. Here, they get blasted, and that's the last we see of them. Here, and then we got a kids comic. There's also one of the exclusive comics that will not be, I believe, in the US.
What is the art on this one? It doesn't say.
Let me check the back.
Might be uncredited.
This is the original. This is the cover by Bill Sienkiewicz. This is the original cover drawn. This is the original cover drawn by Michael Golden.
Right.
And this one's a UK poster by John Higgins. All the Dinobots.
That's nice. And
this is the one I showed. This was the original ending for Marvel's Transformers when it was going to be a 4-issue miniseries.
Right.
The Decepticons are all dead, and the Optimus have won, and then it just immediately ends right there.
Right.
And that's the end. Oh, and here's the bonus here at the end. This is an unsigned copy of
the book plate,
and this is the poster of Simon Daniel Warren Johnson drew. It's the one on the back. You can see right here, Optimus Prime.
Yeah, that looks really good. That's those ones on the side of the box.
Yep.
All right, let's go into book 2. All right, now we got book 2.
With Bumblebee on the cover, probably the most second or the most famous Autobot, depending on how old you are if you watch the movies. It's set up. It's that every book is sort of put in chronological order, or at least the order where it would make most sense for it to happen. The other collections are just the US books or the UK books. But this one is just the collections all together. And you see Optimus broken apart. Like I said, we better get that free Galvatron badge.
All right.
So we're moving on here. And this, we see here the introduction of Icon, which is becomes like one of the capital cities of Transformer lore.
Right.
Like I said, here you can see the UK, there was just a lot more violence and characters just kind of getting maimed because you see people just getting shot in the stomach because, well, why not? This is the UK. This is a really cool cover. Just wanted to show it off. See?
That's a nice wraparound cover.
Yeah. And we see here the Autobots and Septic, more stuff with Optimus getting really pummeled out of, getting pummeled. As I said, this stuff is just moving on. The UK stuff tends to last a while because these stuff are just weekly books. This is Galvatron who came back again for more time travel.
Of course.
The UK books are really like Galvatron. He really comes off as the most unstoppable character in these books sometimes. It's basically you can just take a pummeling from multiple characters. And there's Circuit Breaker again, making it impossible for this book to be republished unless Marvel gets a little bit of that cut. You see Galvatron just literally on fire at this point. He's just like, what? And he's like, for this infamy, I will tear you apart. Like I said, certain characters kind of got more of a glow up, I want to say, or sort of like got more of a push. Look at this really cool shading. I like you can't see Optimus's face in this. And we're moving on. Like I said, these books were published weekly, so they had to make these books short.
That's wild.
Yeah, because they had to split them up for cliffhanger endings.
It's like manga. I mean, where they had to come out with a book like once a week or a story once a week.
That's a good comparison, yeah. But at least sometimes they would have U.S. books to break up.
Yeah, you can tell this is a U.S. book.
Yeah, we got in the U.S. book. Oh, this one's a pretty famous issue. This one, we get Defensor. He's actually on the cover. He's the giant robot. He's one of their combiners. This one is actually a pretty notable issue because, let me see if I get this one right. This is the issue where Optimus is actually killed off. One of the first times I believe he was ever killed off in a book. And he gets killed off because he accidentally killed some NPCs in a video game. He's like, I deserve to die, so they just blow him up.
Right.
And he just dies for a while. And he actually stays dead for a while because, well, they need to sell new toys. And here you can tell how old this is. They put Optimus's data on a floppy disk. His entire brain is on a floppy disk.
Well, we didn't know.
And this one is another surprising issue. This one features Megatron right after this book. And we see him actually crushing one of his, I think this is Brawl. We see him crushing his head. This is the UK art, actually. See? And this one, he basically has a mental breakdown because Optimus is dead and he just can't know what to do without his arch enemy. So he just starts blowing shit around him out of frustration. And this one actually has another interesting ending. You see Megatron's face is literally half melted off. In this one, Megatron goes crazy and blows up a portal. Right. And you would think this is a fake out, but this is actually the last time Megatron will appear for the rest of Bob Budiansky's run. This was actually considered his death.
Huh.
He would not reappear until Simon Ferman took over the U.S. run. So which is 56, this is 25. So for about 31 issues, he was considered dead.
Wow.
And this is the guy you know as the main villain. This is like if they did a Superman cartoon and Lex Luthor is killed halfway through the first season and he doesn't come back until season 5. That would be unthinkable nowadays. But back in the day, there was no set lore. You could just kill off characters that are considered impossible and like unreplaceable nowadays because there wasn't any expectations. And you see they had to start putting these little names for who these characters were because at this point the cast is so huge. They had to start reminding the kids who these characters are. So could you buy their toy, please? Mechanic. Bob Budiansky talked about how he used to get a lot of gripe for having so many human characters in his book. And he said the Transformers were on Earth. Why wouldn't they interact with humans? A lot of people like back then used to like older fans didn't like Budiansky because his books could get silly. But nowadays, when people just kind of have way worse Transformers stories, people just kind of realize the stories weren't bad. They could just be goofy. This is Trypticon, who's like kind of like the Mecha Godzilla.
Right.
He's not a combiner. He's just one of those city planets, which is like the really big Transformers, who are big as cities and also are more expensive. There's also look at this really nice art. You can tell he still looks like a toy,
Right.
but it's not like super obvious that he's just like a giant talking toy. But I actually did a few, I think, like collabs with Toho, who does Godzilla, you know, to sort of reprint, you know, to like lean in on the Godzilla reference because he's basically like, what if Godzilla was a giant transformer? And now we're back in the UK stuff. Oh, this one's a very important issue. Rodimus Prime. If you know him, he's the guy who takes over as Optimus at the end of the movie, dead or alive. And this one's a very important issue because it features a character you might know of. This is Death's Head.
Right. You told me that that's where he appeared.
Death-
Not. This is not the first appearance, right?
No,
But this is a very early appearance.
his second appearance, I believe. You see, Death's Head's a bounty hunter, and he was created meant to be for the Transformer comic.
Right.
But somebody at Marvel in the UK liked him, and they wanted to keep him. I don't think it was Jim Shooter, but their way was they did like a quick short story, like an annual introducing, here is Death's Head. So because of that little loophole, Marvel could keep Death's Head when they lost the Transformers right. If you want to know how they could possibly put Death's Head in the Marvel universe when they separated the two, they actually explain at the end of the UK run, Death's Head gets shot in a portal, and he ends up meeting the Doctor from Doctor Who because Marvel had his rights at the time.
Right.
Then the Doctor hangs out with him, he shrinks him down, and he leaves him on somewhere else, and it turns out the page like spreads out, and you see he's on top of 4 Freedom's Plaza, the Fantastic Four's home. And because of that convoluted set of circumstances, he's now in the Marvel Universe. Copyright law is kind of crazy sometimes. But man, he looks pretty cool. And I think Ferman ended up writing most of his stories.
Well, yeah, and Liam Sharp, that's like some of his first early work from Marvel was doing Death's Head. Or Death's Head 2, I think.
And I think Ferman talked about once he didn't like Death's Head 2 because he didn't like having to get his character killed off for a cool, edgy new one.
Right.
But look how amazing he is. Oh, this one's kind of a major interesting. And this one's kind of interesting. In this one, Death's Head actually kills Bumblebee. And that would be, look at him, he's actually he explodes and he's actually dead for most of the, and he's actually dead for, he actually does die in this. And they actually have to rebuild him into a new character called Goldbug for his new toy. And this actually is interesting because I'll talk about it later, but in the US run, they came up with a different explanation for why Goldbug in the G.I. Joe crossover, which they didn't publish in the US. So this is like the only real major contradiction between the two continuities. Here's Ultra Magnus looking horrified. Because Ultra Magnus had a thing where he didn't want to fight war for a while. He was like a pacifist. Because he was sick of the war. This is Goldbug. This is the upgraded Bumblebee. He didn't sell very well. Nowadays, whenever Bumblebee comes up, they never do Goldbug. Except like maybe once in a while. You see, I think this is the crossover. One of the crossovers.
Jeff Senior.
You see, I think this one, let me see if I'm right. This is actually one of the crossovers with G.I. Joe.
Okay.
Or rather, G.I. Joe's like UK division, like Action Force, which is a different thing. And you see, here's Scarlet. Some of these crossovers with G.I. Joe are not published in any collection besides this one. Here's Megatron coming back from the dead in the UK stories to hang around. Like I said, and we have, again, this is when they started connecting the universes together. Nowadays, it would seem kind of ridiculous, but back in the day, they actually did try to keep them kind of separate for a while. You see kind of like the G.I. Joe characters look a little off because they don't have that American art style.
Right.
So they look different. They're still recognizable, but they do look a little bit different than how you would imagine them.
Right.
Yeah, Action Force, I think, had a few crossovers with the Marvel stuff. I don't think it's as well remembered as G.I. Joe, as the U.S. G.I. Joe. But see, saluting because it's G.I. Joe.
Right.
And then we're back here with the U.S. with Black Rock. This one's like another company. That was a major part of the Transformers for a while. And we see more characters getting added. I think Bob Budiansky said there were certain characters he'd love to have developed more. I think he mentioned he really liked Blaster. Who's like this whole thing is like he basically like plays music and he's like audio, like a spy. But you have to keep introducing more characters. As you see, we have already so much of the lore getting set up. At this point, like I said, the roster is getting pretty bloated up. It's actually kind of a miracle. Here's Death's Head again, making these 3 collections hard to publish in the UK and the US. Here's a bunch of kids risking their life to go to space for Skylinks.
Of course.
And we're moving on ahead pretty fast. At this point, I think Blaster just kind of takes over as the protagonist. Here's another UK-only Christmas story.
Right.
Learn the value of Christmas. They had a lot of Christmas stories in the UK. Oh, I really love this cover. Just shoving a gun in Cyclonus' face. There's Unicron when they started making more like Satan at this point and started really playing with the idea.
More Death's Head.
More Death's Head, even more. He was a lot in these early UK stories. Now, of course, for legal reasons, they can't actually reference that he was ever in this Transformer stuff. And now we're moving back to the US stuff. Well, this one's drawn by Jose Delbo. I don't recognize that artist.
Jose Delbo was an old comics artist. What do I keep thinking? DC? Or...
I think you're confused with Jose Garcia Lopez.
No. I know. No. There's a lot of Jose's. I mean.
And this one's a mini-series.
And they got Frank Springer back.
This one's for the Headmasters mini-series. They had to introduce their all-new Transformers that can basically turn into heads to control their Transformers.
Okay.
And they even got their own little mini-series. So now Bob Budiansky had to write this one, too. I think at this point, this is when Budiansky started reaching burnout. I think he was getting really tired from all this stuff. Because he had to also come up with the names for these characters. Their models. And we get this whole miniseries with totally different cast of characters. You can see everybody's hair is starting to get a little longer now because it's getting in the end of the 80s. And this miniseries is also including the US characters. The Headmasters are also characters I think can sometimes be human characters who turn into robots to control the robot bodies. You see they're kind of like human. You see like here they have like these human bodies and turn into robots so they can control the robot bodies so they can have more robot characters. Here we're almost at the halfway point of the Marvel run. Here's Optimus again getting blasted. Soundwave kind of takes over as leader for a while. And you can see how massive the rosters are at this point. Like look at these characters, man. So many Transformers. And Optimus finally, after 20 issues, he finally comes back from the dead as a Power Master, which means he gets more upgrades and stuff. And a new toy.
Of course.
Cosmic Carnival. More costumes. And this one is 44 issues long for a toy commercial. And here's some of the characters who never appeared in the US stuff, like RC. Moving up ahead. And we're actually reaching the end of this volume. And here's the end. But before we go, there's one thing I want to show you guys. The poster is here. This poster is Megatron, also drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson. And he's based off his Marvel design, as you can see, because he has the black helmet, but Megatron has the silver helmet. And that's volume 2. We're going to move on to volume 3.
Okay, now we are on book 3.
And this time featuring Jazz on the cover, if I'm correct. Could be wrong, though. We're moving up ahead. And we're starting with another UK. Yeah. You can tell the 90s are starting to, it's almost close to the 90s because there's a guy who looks like Wolverine here already. That Logan craze, man. It's everywhere.
Who did the script? Who did the script? Dan Abnett.
Dan Abnett, that's correct. If you're familiar with him, he's a big time Guardians of the Galaxy run. He had that He had that run on Guardians of the Galaxy with what's his name?
I met him too. I feel bad.
Andrew.
No, not Andrew.
Andy Lanning.
Okay, Andy Lanning.
Andy Lanning, that's right.
Yeah, I met him when I was at Magic Leap. He was a chief creative officer. Nice guy.
Oh, I'd like to meet someday. And you see, he has the logo, or like the Wolverine stuff,
right.
Little head. And now we're continuing on with more.
Oh, everybody's gritting their teeth.
It's not the 90s yet, but they're getting close. Different artists. Everyone's starting to look angry. Well, we're back here with Circuit Breaker, coughing up more money for Marvel. This guy looks like he's dressed in Star Trek.
Yep. Or a parable from Mobius.
Look at all these toys. These are pretenders who are like robots that pretend to be creatures, so they dress up in these weird disguises like monsters. But again, by this point, the book was kind of like, Transformers was kind of like running low on ideas and we're kind of desperate for money. So they were doing like all kinds of crazy gimmicks to just kind of keep the line going. Here's the movie cast finally showing up into the 86 continuity. Moving to the early like Marvel stuff here. Rodimus, RC, Ultramanus. They're getting, because now they can do a crossover. Because at this point, the writers kind of realize in the US books they're not going to bring in Rodimus. And this is the famous Underbase saga, where Starscream gets power from something called the Underbase, like a database, gets cosmic powers, and then murders like about a quarter of the cast. Coincidentally, all of them are characters who didn't have toys anymore on the show themselves. And this book has like a massive fatality count, and even still, like this is issue 50. The 50th issue for this toy comic. And we're going to see here Starscream is just basically, we see he's just murdering all these characters are getting murdered. And they still have more characters, because I don't think you understand how many characters were in the original Transformers toy line, because it was just they were exporting toys from Japan. Starscream finally gets blown up and dies. But at this point, like Starscream gets even more power. Look at this really cool shot. You see literally hundreds of characters, like dozens, even maybe like 100 characters, all getting blasted to pieces. And this is basically Bob Budiansky finally gleefully getting rid of as many characters as he can to just kind of like, you know, like lighten the load. Then finally Starscream explodes. And they still had dozens of characters left. So this is by the end, like we're reaching the end of the Budiansky run. We're 51. He leaves in a few issues at this point. He's just getting kind of tired. You can tell because he really worked really hard on this book. We're going back for more UK exclusive stuff with the nice coloring. Oh, Bob Budiansky wrote this one. You know, I think Budiansky was very aware of the UK stuff, and he got along with Simon Ferman. That's why he recommended Ferman take over when he finally decided to leave the books. This one's another character I wanted to introduce. This one's called Bludgeon. He's a character that gets introduced for the UK. He's a character that Ferman introduces. He's like the samurai with appearance with a skull face. He had no toy, but he became so popular they did make a toy of him, and now and they put him in modern Transformers Transformers stories. Another character that got introduced in this time was Thunderwing, who also ended up getting a toy down the line. This is Nightbeat. He's a character Simon Ferman really loved. His whole thing is he acts like a detective, like an old like gumshoe kind of detective. He appears in a lot of Ferman stuff. We see some of these really weird designs that don't look like they could make a toy out of. So this is actually the final issue Bob Budiansky writes. It's a very weird storyline where some of the Autobots join a wrestling. One of the Micromasters joins the wrestling thing and fights against wrestlers. And this issue has a very interesting ending. As you know, this is the last Budiansky book, where Road Handler says some hostile things. He says he's not a plaything anymore. He says people should stop looking, and he's gonna move on. And that he says, the important thing is you don't need me. Don't look going for heroes to believe in. Believe in yourself. And he rolls off, never to be seen again.
That's probably Budiansky.
Yeah, I think this was like a Budiansky basically like breaking the fourth wall and saying, I'm done. I wrote all I can. Yeah. I'm moving on. It's done. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for the good times. And I don't think Red Hall is ever seen again. Starscream looks like this horrifying thing. Look at this stuff. The UK was unhinged with some of the artists would do. And Budiansky leaves at this point, as I mentioned. So Simon Ferman takes over as the writer for the US. This is like one of the retcons they had to do, because when Simon Ferman came back, he reintroduced Megatron, but Megatron had been around the UK stories for a while, so they explained, oh, it's just a clone, he's dead now. This is Ferman trying to bangle together the two continuities into one. At this point, the Transformers toy, the sales were starting to go down. Transformers toy line, I believe the cartoon had been canceled by this point. So at this point, they were getting a lot more creative freedom. By the end, I think they actually mentioned that at this point, they didn't even have to like submit scripts for approval to Hasbro for, is this okay? They would just say, yeah, okay, whatever. They would just let them go, which seems crazy nowadays. Right. But at the point, Transformers wasn't selling, so anything goes. Gentle touch, we get RC, who gets the female Autobot, who was never in the US stories. Well, they they introduced her in the UK. You see, it's called Prime's Rib. Get it, like
Anna's Rib.
They have to, they introduced her because Hasbro didn't want girls in their toy.
And then Stas was the artist. I've heard of him. I don't know why I know that name somehow.
Stas also did some of the art of these issues for a while. We're here. There's 60 issues in. They got introduced. This is when the UK only characters started showing up in the US books at this point, like Bludgeon. You would think he's a toy, but no, he just looks like that. This is how he naturally looks. This is Ferman's biggest like creation, Primus. Primus is basically the god of Transformers.
Oh, okay.
He's like, he created their whole planet. He's sometimes their planet too, but he's basically their god. He was created by Ferman. And this origin became so popular that Primus is basically now in every Transformers origin. The honest to gosh origin of the Transformers. So we see here, moving up again. I think this is one of the ones I showed they had a different covering. They started having more of the UK style in the art too. You can see here.
Yeah, it looks more hip.
More of the Matrix Quest is another famous storyline where they would start, where they were looking for this thing called the Matrix in order to get it for Unicron for reasons. It's complicated to get into it. Basically, you can see here the characters are now like more and more characters getting introduced at this point, even to the end. See, some of the art starts getting more dark and looks more visible. At this point, I think at this point we've actually reached the 90s, or at least for.
Hold on.
Let me see.
Okay, Jeff Senior is now the artist.
Yep. So he's taking over the U.S. book art. That's why the book and the art looks almost the same in both canons now. You see the characters are here in both universes. And we're moving on to the next story. This one's a very famous U.S. story. It's actually going to get reprinted in the Kickstarter. I'm getting a reprint of this issue. Part of this one is Rhythms of Darkness. And we see this one's in the future. Galvatron has destroyed the entire world.
Right.
And Ferman wanted to introduce Galvatron. So we see this alternate future where the Decepticons have won. Everything's gone to hell. But at the last moment, Galvatron disappears and gets summoned by Unicron. And he ends up in the main Transformer universe. Because Ferman, like Galvatron, wound up in the US books. This is when they also started introducing more characters. This one they brought back Circuit Breaker and they gave her like a whole X-Men style team to work together. This is what I think they were going to call Techno X or Tech X or something.
Right.
Nothing to do with X-Men. They just like having X. I think I remember they said they were going to retcon out Transformers and reveal that the whole book was just some kind of computer simulation so they could have them in the Marvel universe to fight like Marvel robots like Ultron. Hasbro didn't even give a crap anymore. The toys weren't selling anywhere besides in the UK. So they said, yeah, do whatever you want. Circuit Breaker gets a redemption arc and then gets knocked into a coma, never to be seen again because the book got canceled. Here we at the last Autobot. Everyone's getting big grins and smiles. And Galvatron still survives the stuff because he's basically invincible. These human characters Marvel was going to do a book on that never happened. Characters. And then we see Galvatron literally getting ripped apart, even the snow, and he's still alive. We get the last Autobot. This is when the book got canceled. This is the final issue of the US run. The epic conclusion. Bludgeon is back here too. More fighting here. See the coloring. They actually wrapped up mostly pretty well. Some things were left unexplained or unresolved. Optimus comes back in the last issue. But they have to kind of rush things to end the series here. To have the final battle with Bludgeon. A few other characters. The Autobots win. Bludgeon's defeated. Look at that. It's over. We can go home. The end. And the book ends there. In the meantime, here's the poster.
That's the side cover art.
Yep.
For your box.
Here's the Autobots. That's Optimus. I believe that's Defensor. Not really. It took me a while to recognize him. Jetfire. That's Sideswipe, Hound, Bumblebee, Ratchet, and Prowl. You can see because he has the cop badge.
Right.
And that's the end of Volume 3. So you see Megatron's already team up. He hangs out for a little bit of while. And then we move on ahead. Optimus shows up. He's like, let's go find out. As I said, at this point, at this point, Transformers are so low, they gotta have G.I. Joe cover them to G.I. Joe boost their popularity. Then we move up ahead. Cook more G.I. Joe stuff. Now we've reached the end of the G.I. Joe, and this kickstarts the Generation 2 comic. Although Larry Hama did not basically pretend like this crossover never happened.
Right.
This is not your father's Autobot. Transformers Generation 2, the 90s are here.
Oh boy.
With giant guns and big teeth.
Who did the art on this one? Derek Yaniger. Never heard of this person. Oh my god. These are people, I think they just say, hey, draw like Jim Lee.
A lot of explosions, teeth. Look at that. Look at a lot of characters.
None of this makes any storytelling sense. Oh my god, this is so terrible.
A lot of explosions. This is a character called G-Axis. And there's a funny thing about this. You see, the book, Hasbro and Marvel thought this book would be like an insane seller. And it actually sold really well, but not to the numbers Hasbro wanted or Marvel thought was, so they canceled the 12 issues. And Simon Ferman even said he knew the book was going to cancel. He introduced this character called G-Axis as a joke. G-Axis. Because he knew his book was not lasting more than 12 issues. The funny thing is, the book still sold insanely well. To the point it basically would outsell every single comic today, even the Absolute stuff from DC. You see, everybody started has a lot more guns now, explosions going up. Earth gets blown up. A lot of people on Earth die. This looks like a Rob Liefeld drawing at some points, but the art isn't bad. It just looks a lot more gritty and edgy.
This is what I can't stand this era.
And the characters started having weird neon colors and redesigns because they need to sell the Generation 2 toy line. Ferman actually admitted, though this book had fans, he didn't regret. He said he kind of regretted the grit. He really regretted this run because of the grittiness and edginess.
Right.
And years later, when he did IDW, he actually retconned out Generation 2 and did another sequel to the Marvel run called Regeneration 1 that basically pretended like Gen 2 never happened. And they basically did like a whole sequel series. This is just the mass destruction you would get from a 90s book. Here's the last issue of Marvel's Transformers. Cover. Swarm. So they beat the Swarm, who are like these basically giant alien locusts, save the world. Optimus sacrifices himself, rips apart, then he comes back in a new body for another toy. It never ends. This is the last page, and it ends on a cliffhanger. The entire Marvel Transformers run ends on a cliffhanger and introduce a new villain.
Right.
So we get some UK exclusive stories. They had, I'm not sure these stories. These stories have a little bit more normal art. You can tell now it's like overly gritty and violent. But you can tell there was still that push. And here's the end where we do the Transformer universe, where they show off pretty much every character, art, their toy model. Most of these were named by Bob Budiansky. Characters like Optimus Prime got his name from Megatron, Defensor. You can see a couple of characters: Freeway, Ironhide, Landmine. They always done an alphabetical order. I believe this one is also not in the US UK collection. So this one's also going to be just kind of exclusive here. Sure Shot, One Charger, Springer, and Xenotron. And here's the cover by David Yaniger.
That is the 90s and one picture.
There's not enough butt shots. And here it's a cover. And this is the end. But here's the last poster I have. Also drawn again by Daniel Warren Johnson. This one would be on the Decepticon set, which is basically on the Decepticon version of the set. There's Megatron,
right.
Soundwave, Skywarp.
Because there's two sets. There's this one that's the red one, which is the Optimus Prime set.
The Autobot set, yeah.
Autobot set, excuse me. And then the other one is the Decepticon set, which is just like this, except that it's purple and it features Decepticons.
Yes, and it also has this art on the side. Megatron,
right.
Starscream, Devastator, I think that's Rumble, Frenzy, that's Reflector, Shockwave, Laserbeak, and the Skywarp. And that's Underwing about. And that's the end of Transformers.
Wow. Well, hey, thanks for sharing all this cool stuff. I think that much of this, but not all of this, will be printed and sold in the retail stores. But there's, like, as Chris said, there's a lot of exclusive here. So just kind of wanted to share the exclusives and share the books. Hi, if the ending of that clip was short, it's because the battery died. But I just wanted to say, if you're able to watch the whole thing, awesome, thank you. We had a lot of fun putting together. Chris had a lot of fun talking about it. He's very passionate about Transformers. So anyway, thank you and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for letting me on the show, Dad.
You're very welcome. Thank you.